I need to tell you about a mistake I made, a mistake that cost me years of my life, moments I can never get back and people I'll never see again. And I am not telling you this to impress you or to make myself look vulnerable in some calculated way. I am telling you this because if even one person watching this learns from my mistake instead of making it themselves, then maybe sharing this pain will have been worth something. The mistake wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a single catastrophic decision. It was quieter than that, more insidious. It was the mistake of believing I had time, of thinking that life would wait for me, of postponing the things that mattered because I was convinced there would always be another chance, another day, another moment. And I want to ask you something before I go deeper into this story. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "I'll do it later," whether it was calling a friend, taking a break, or chasing a dream, and then realizing that later never came? Write it in the comments. There was a period of my life when I truly believed that time was endless. I thought there would always be another summer to enjoy, another evening to spend with people I cared about, another chance to live out the small dreams that made my heart feel light. I kept telling myself, not now, later, there will be time later, and for years, that phrase became the background music of my life. I lived on pause, pushing so many things into a vague future, a trip I wanted to take later, sitting down to watch the stars on a clear night later, writing down my thoughts in a journal, something I always swore I'd do later. Even the simplest joys, having a slow breakfast with someone I loved, calling an old friend, or simply lying in the grass and doing absolutely nothing, I postponed them as though time would wait patiently for me. The strange thing is, when you're young, you really believe that life is too long to worry about such small moments. You think you'll always be able to circle back. You tell yourself, it's fine, there will be another chance. And at first it feels harmless. You skip one gathering, you delay one trip, you turn down one evening out. But the truth is those single choices pile up silently, and one day you wake up and realize that whole chapters of your life never happened simply because you kept waiting for the perfect time. I'll never forget one evening in particular. A close friend of mine had invited me to a small dinner. Nothing formal, nothing grand, just a warm night, a few drinks, and laughter echoing through the air. I remember telling him, not this time, I'm tired, maybe next week. But the next week never came. Life, as it always does, moved in its unpredictable way. And before I knew it, he was gone. Not just gone from the city, gone from this world. I never got that evening back. I never got to sit at that table, never got to share those laughs, never got to say the things I thought I could always say later. That moment has haunted me for years. It wasn't just about losing a night. It was about losing something irreplaceable. I realized too late that it's not the big events we regret missing the most. It's the small, ordinary, almost invisible moments. The hug you didn't give, the I love you thought you'd say another day, the quiet walk you promised but never took. These are the things that leave holes inside you when they're gone. The cruel part is that I didn't notice the damage while it was happening. You don't. You keep convincing yourself that postponing joy is harmless, that deferring happiness is smart, that delaying dreams make sense because the future is wide open. But then one day you look around and the future isn't endless anymore. The faces around you have changed. The people you thought would always be there aren't. The time you thought you had has vanished into thin air. And here's what I learned painfully. Time doesn't forgive. It doesn't stop. It doesn't wait until you're ready. The seconds pass, whether you're living them fully or throwing them away. And every time you say later, you're silently handing over a piece of your life that you'll never get back. The mistake I made was simple but devastating. I believed that tomorrow was guaranteed. I thought I had control over time, but I didn't. I never did. None of us do. I wish I could tell you this is just a story, that it's some dramatic exaggeration, but it isn't. This is how life slips by quietly, subtly, without alarms or warnings. You don't notice the years disappearing until one day you are standing in the middle of your life realizing how many things you postponed and how few of them you can ever return to. That is the mistake I made. And if I could go back, if I could change just one thing, it would be this. I would stop living for later and start living for now. Because later isn't real. Later is just a trick that time plays on us. And when you finally understand that, sometimes it's already too late. I remember sitting alone one night, staring at my reflection in a window, and realizing how much of my life I had put on hold. It wasn't about losing opportunities for success or recognition. That part didn't even sting as much. What really broke me was understanding that I had lost laughter, I had lost connection, I had lost time with the people who mattered most, and no amount of wishing could bring that back. Think about it for a moment. You can rebuild a career, you can earn more money, you can start over in almost any area of life, but you can't start over with time. Once a day is gone, it's gone forever. And the truth that hit me hardest was this. People don't wait forever. The world doesn't wait. When you keep postponing, you're not just gambling with your own life. You're gambling with the presence of others in it. I began to notice patterns. Birthdays I never showed up for, messages I answered weeks too late. Promises I casually pushed aside because I thought there would be plenty of chances later, and then suddenly there weren't. Friends had moved on, relationships had cooled, opportunities for closeness had vanished into silence. I became a ghost in my own life, watching it all move forward without me while I kept waiting for some mythical, better time. The cruelest part is that no one tells you when the last time really is. The last coffee with a friend never arrives with a warning label. The last smile from someone you love doesn't announce itself as the last. It only becomes clear when you look back and realize you let it slip through your fingers, and by then the weight of it is unbearable. For me, it wasn't just one friend I lost to this mistake. It was moments with my own children. I told myself I'll spend more time with them tomorrow, I'll do it properly this weekend. But children don't wait, they grow, they change, and the version of them you miss never comes back. One day you wake up and the child you thought you still had is a young adult with their own life, their own priorities, their own distance from you. And you ask yourself, where was I when those years slipped by? It makes me think about how often we fool ourselves with the idea of permanence. We see the people we love every day and we assume they'll always be there. We hear their voice, we recognize their habits, and we take it all for granted. But nothing is permanent, nothing is promised. And when you live for later, you don't just waste your own life, you waste the lives intertwined with yours. I've carried that mistake like a scar. And the deeper I think about it, the more I realize how small the reasons were that I gave myself at the time. I was tired, I was distracted, I thought something else mattered more in the moment. But years later, none of those excuses mean anything. All that's left is the memory of a door I didn't walk through, a conversation I didn't have, a presence I didn't give. If you've ever felt that sting, the regret of missing something that you can't get back, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't yet, I promise you this. The day will come when you do, and it will shake you in ways you never imagined. Here's the reality I had to face. Life doesn't punish you loudly for these mistakes. It punishes you quietly, with silence, with absence, with the knowing ache of what if. And those are wounds that don't heal easily because there is no way to go back and fix them. I used to think I'd have decades to catch up, to repair, to show up later, but now I know there is no later, there's only now. Every smile you choose not to return, every moment you choose to ignore, every later you believe in, they all add up until you find yourself with nothing but a mountain of moments unlived. And I'll be honest with you, that realization broke me. It broke me in a way I never admitted to anyone at the time. It made me cry alone, made me lose sleep, made me question who I was becoming, and maybe the hardest part was realizing I wasn't unlucky. I wasn't cursed. I had done it to myself by believing I had time, by believing later was safe. But here's the truth I want you to feel in your bones. Later is a lie. Later doesn't exist. If something matters, the only time to do it is now, because one day, sooner than you think, later will turn into never. I remember the night everything shifted. It wasn't some dramatic epiphany with fireworks or a breakdown in front of a crowd. It was just me walking down an empty street after midnight, the city around me quiet in a way I hadn't heard in years. I'd left my phone at home by accident. A tiny mistake that felt uncomfortable at first, but slowly began to feel like oxygen. For the first time in a long time, there was no buzzing, no scrolling, no calendar reminders, just the sound of my own footsteps and the cool air hitting my face. I stopped under a street lamp and realized how unfamiliar the moment felt. When was the last time I'd been outside without a purpose, without rushing to get somewhere, without my mind already in the future? I couldn't even remember. I tilted my head back and saw the stars faint, blurred by city lights, but still there. And in that small, quiet second, a truth landed so hard it almost made me stumble. All the laterers I had been clinging to were just excuses not to live my life now. I was waiting for permission that would never come, waiting for some invisible green light to tell me it was okay to enjoy being alive. It was like feeling a door open inside my chest. I thought of my friend, the one I'd kept promising to visit, the one whose messages I had marked and read because I was too busy. I thought of my kids' laughter echoing from another room while I sat scrolling on my phone instead of joining them. I thought of my parents growing older quietly while I kept telling myself I'd make time next month. Suddenly, all those postponed moments didn't look harmless anymore. They looked like theft, and the thief was me. The irony is that I had always been so good at planning for the future, at thinking ahead, at preparing. But nobody tells you that over-preparing for tomorrow is another way of abandoning today. Nobody tells you how quickly someday turns into never. And as I stood there under that street lamp, I realized that the life I thought was waiting for me was already slipping away minute by minute, breath by breath. I wish I could tell you I fixed everything that night. I didn't. It's hard to undo a lifetime of postponing, but I did something I hadn't done in years. I turned around and walked home slowly. I let myself breathe. I let myself feel the cold night air instead of rushing to escape it. And when I got back inside, I picked up my phone, opened my messages, and wrote to the people I'd been putting off. I miss you. Can we meet this week? It felt small and awkward and late, but it was real. It was now. And here's the part I want you to remember, because maybe you need to hear it the way I needed to hear it that night. No one is going to tap you on the shoulder and tell you it is time to start living. There's no magical moment when it becomes safe to take the trip, call the friend, watch the sunset, or simply sit quietly with someone you love. The only time you have is the one you're in right now. The only permission you'll ever get is the one you give yourself. There's something else I need to admit, another mistake that shaped me just as much as the one I've already told you about, and maybe this one is even harder to face because it wasn't about time slipping away, it was about silence, about all the words I never said. For a long time I convinced myself that silence was strength, that I didn't need to express everything I felt, that the people around me could simply feel what was in my heart without me spelling it out. I thought my presence was enough, that my actions spoke for me, that my loved ones didn't need to hear the words because they already knew. But here's the harsh truth I learned. People don't always know, they can't read your thoughts. And when you keep those words locked inside your gratitude, your love, your forgiveness, what you're really giving them is nothing. I've lost count of how many times I told myself, I'll say it tomorrow, I'll tell them later, just like with the time I wasted. I believed I had endless opportunities to speak, but silence is cruel. Silence waits for no one, and the words I left unspoken. Thank you, I'm proud of you, I forgive you, I love you. Those words turned into ghosts that follow me everywhere. They linger in my memory, and they echo in the spaces where voices used to be. And let me tell you this, silence doesn't just steal your voice, it steals your connections. It builds invisible walls between you and the people who matter most. You think they'll understand without you saying anything, but all they really feel is distance. And one day, when you finally gather the courage to speak, you might realize the moment is already gone. Silence is deceptive because it feels safe. It feels like control. You avoid vulnerability, you avoid the awkward pauses, you avoid the chance of being misunderstood. But in reality, you're trading temporary comfort for permanent regret. The words you swallow to protect yourself will eventually choke you. They will rise up in your mind in the quiet moments, reminding you of everything you could have said, should have said, but never did. I used to think, what difference does it make? They know I care, they know I'm grateful, they know I love them, but life has a cruel way of proving you wrong, because no matter how obvious it seems in your head, unspoken words don't exist outside of you, they vanish with you, they never reach the other person. And sometimes the silence you thought was harmless becomes the heaviest burden they carry, wondering why you never said what they needed to hear. I remember looking at people I loved, wanting so badly to say something, and then stopping myself out of pride, out of fear, out of that ridiculous belief that tomorrow was guaranteed. I would tell myself, it's not the right moment, they'll know without me saying it, I'll do it later. But later never came, and the silence that felt like strength at the time now feels like betrayal. Here's the truth no one likes to admit. Silence kills relationships. It starves them. Words are the food of connection, and without them, everything withers. You can be standing next to someone every day yet still feel oceans apart because the words you never spoke left the bridge between you unfinished. And that's what I wish I had understood earlier, that words aren't just sounds, they are bridges, bridges to people's hearts, to healing, to closeness. Every unspoken word is a bridge never built, and without bridges, you end up on an island of your own making. Trust me, it's a lonely place to be, but maybe the cruelest part of silence is this. You don't realize the value of the words until it's too late, until the moment is gone, until the person is gone, and then you're left with nothing but the echo of what you never said. And here's what nobody tells you about that kind of silence. It compounds. The longer you stay quiet, the harder it becomes to speak. The words you don't say today become the words you can't say tomorrow. And eventually you've built such a fortress around yourself that even when you want to reach out, you don't know how anymore. You've forgotten the language of honest connection. I used to think silence protected me, that if I didn't voice my love, my gratitude, my apologies, my fears, then I couldn't be rejected, couldn't be vulnerable, couldn't be hurt. But the truth is, silence hurt me more than any words ever could have, because at least with words, you have a chance. With silence, you have nothing. There were people I worked with for years who I never really knew because I never asked real questions. There were friends who drifted away because I never told them how much they meant to me. There were family members who probably wondered if I even cared because I couldn't bring myself to say the words out loud. And for what? What did my silence protect me from? Connection, growth, love. It turns out the things I was so afraid of were exactly what I needed most. I think the breaking point came when I realized I was becoming invisible, even to myself. When you spend long enough not speaking your truth, you start to forget what your truth even is. You become so practiced at holding back that you lose touch with what you actually feel, what you actually want, what you actually need. So I made a decision, a terrifying one. I decided to start saying the things I'd been holding back. Not all at once. I'm not that brave, but slowly, deliberately, one honest sentence at a time. I started telling people when I appreciated them, when they made my day better, when something they did mattered. And yes, it felt awkward at first. Some people didn't know how to respond. Some probably thought I was going through some kind of crisis. But you know what? It was better than silence because at least they knew, at least the words existed outside my head. I started having the difficult conversations I'd been avoiding. The ones about hurt feelings, about misunderstandings, about disappointments. And those were even harder, but necessary because unspoken resentments don't disappear. They just rot quietly until they poison everything. I started telling the people I love that I love them, regularly, not waiting for special occasions or perfect moments. Just saying it, because what if there isn't a next time? What if this ordinary Tuesday is the last chance I get? And here's what I learned. The words you're afraid to say are usually the words that need to be said most. The vulnerability you're avoiding is exactly what creates real connection. The silence you think is protecting you is actually killing you slowly. So I'm asking you now directly, what are you not saying? What words are you holding hostage in your chest? What person in your life needs to hear something from you that you've been postponing? Because I promise you this, the regret of speaking and being misunderstood is nothing compared to the regret of staying silent and never knowing what could have been. The awkwardness of vulnerability fades. The pain of permanent silence doesn't. Don't make my mistake. Don't let the people you care about wonder. Don't let relationships die from starvation when all they needed was a few honest words. Don't wait until it's too late to realize that silence isn't strength, it's surrender. Speak now while you still can, while they're still here to hear it, while the words still matter. Because one day they won't be, and all you'll have left is the echo of everything you never said. Share this with someone who's been carrying words they haven't said, someone who needs permission to finally speak what's been sitting heavy in their chest. Subscribe if you want more honest conversations about the mistakes we make and the lessons we learned too late, so maybe you can learn them earlier than I did. And tell me this. What's one thing you've been meaning to say to someone but keep postponing? Not someday, not eventually. What are the actual words you need to speak before it's too late?